Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video in Star Trek Online. And in today's video, we're going to talk about some more statty types of things, and it's going to be some budget cannon builds. And on the budget end, because you can't blow things up in just one fell swoop, you'll need a lot of additional survival things to keep yourself alive. So in this video, that's kind of what we're going to be going over what my personal definition of budget is for builds, which is different than most people's inside the game, as well as the species trait and bridge officers that I'm going to be using for this, some consoles for it, and then some weapon layouts for the 6 different energy types inside of the game. Like the other builds on this channel, SGO Academy links for all 6 energy types will be in the description, as well as time links for all these different moments in this video. I'm doing this today honestly, because I was trying to think of an honorable way to honor Aron Eisenberg's passing. He was a fantastic guy for the STO community. He was one of those guys that helped bring in a lot of the other people to voice act a lot of our awesome characters in our game. And I felt that doing this type of video using the Ferengi Decor Marauder was probably going to be the best way to do it. It also happens to be one of the cheapest ships on the exchange at the moment, on PC at least, and also happens to be able to mount cannons. So that's what I decided to do for this video, and that's why this video is coming out today. Anyway, so like all the other videos that I've done, to clarify what a budget build is for me, this varies a lot in the community as to whether C-store items are allowed, if cheap things on the exchange below 15 million energy credits, whether we are going to be allowed to use fleet equipment, because fleets take a bit of resources in order to build up and such, or if it's going to be super extreme, and if we're to say, if it's not available from a mission, then we can't use it at all. I think that's a bit too extreme. So the way that I'm doing it is basically, if you can get it on your own, and you don't need to do any upgrading in order to be able to use it effectively, then I think that it's fine. So anything from R&D crafting is totally fine for weapons and consoles, reputation weapons and reputation consoles, mission weapons, consoles, and traits, as well as any traits that you get inherently with leveling up, and any traits that you can earn through the specializations, basically just through grinding time inside of this game and just playing the content. Not having to worry about any of the economies and such of the game in order to get said item or trait. Basically what this means is we're going to be excluding everything from the fleet. No fleet items, no fleet weapons, no fleet bridge officers, nothing from the duty officers, because that's really complicated as to what's actually budget and what isn't. We're not going to be including anything from the lockbox system, the low-buy store, nor anything from the Phoenix lockbox system either, since a lot of those things are pretty interconnected actually. Additionally, I won't be including any consoles off of Starships and nothing from events either, because a lot of those things are either time sensitive as to whether you actually have access to those, and then for different Starships, well, that's already self-explanatory in that it costs a lot of money to get certain Starships inside of the game. For the Starship in this video, I'm going to be using the Ferengi Decor Marauder. This is one of the ships that can mount dual cannons and dual heavy cannons. That's available from the exchange. That's really cheap off the exchange. It's only a couple million energy credits, which, considering that most of your good traits on the exchange are already going to be more expensive than that, and a lot of your good starships in the game on the exchange anyway, you're buying them for the trait, and so it's going to be in the couple hundred millions to get those starships. Ferengi Decor right now is about 3.5 million. It's about the same prices as the Heroic Hunter Heavy Escort as well. In my opinion, in terms of the stat standpoint, the Heroian's a bit better for budget DPS with cannons, just because it's got a much better base turn and impulse to be able to more easily get inside that really narrow 45-degree arc that you're ideally going to be wanting for a lot of your damage inside the game. Now with Cannon Scatter Volley, it widens to something a bit larger than that, but that's generally the type of arc that you're going to be thinking about, because we don't have Withering Barrage for this build. It's going to be 45 degrees for, around a third to half of the time for the build itself. With the Ferengi Marauder, another thing that's nice about it is that it does get battlecruiser commands, which means it will be able to use weapon system efficiency and be able to more easily manage our power consumption levels on the starship. Both these starships, by the way, have decent hull and shield ratios considering their DPS nature, so that's nice to think about too. These are my suggestions for bridge officer abilities. You can also see the STO link as to those abilities themselves, and my personal reasons as to why I chose certain things the way that they were. It's much more defensive in nature still. However, you definitely can easily take out reverse polarity and put something more offensive there too. For Captain Bridge Officers, because we're honoring Aron Eisenberg, we should play as a Ferengi and have a Ferengi crew. In order to play as a Ferengi in this game, you have to choose the modern 2409 Federation. You can't choose Discovery Federation, you can't choose TOS Federation. Nog was the very first Federation officer, and he did that during part of Deep Space Nine. He actually didn't finish his Academy days because of the war, but he was the first Federation officer. So you have to play modern Federations in order to play as a Ferengi in Starfleet. My suggestion is, if you can afford it as well and you want to splurge a little bit and you want to do full budget, and you want to get Cadet Nog as part of your bridge officer crew for space, it's totally good. He has one of the rare traits called Techie, which adds additional healing for your abilities and such, which is nice. If you want to do the full support build, in my opinion, he's the one that you should be choosing as your engineering officer for that engineering slot, but that's for a different video entirely. For the traits themselves, I did forget to put the cannon training picture on here. That one just adds even more damage for your cannon abilities, and you get that inherently with leveling up. While the rest of these you have to get through straight leveling up, or 3 of them are from particular missions. Keep in mind though, regenerative control synergy kind of sucks, which is why even in the pictures I've taken that out. But the rest of these are pretty decent. So, especially because Nog is an engineer, I decided that we're just going to have the engineering traits here. Grace Under Fire and EPS Manifold Efficiency, you both get with leveling up, and they're actually both pretty decent for budget end builds inside this game. They don't scale as well into the super high-end DPS realm, but for budget end it works very, very well. Grace Under Fire basically allows your miraculous repairs to basically become a 2-minute clicky essentially. In terms of the starship traits themselves, all these are going to be from specializations, which means it's going to take a while to grind the time inside the game. Not resources, but grind the time for getting that specialization experience in order to get these eventually. One of the best ones is predictive algorithms for DPS, at least for budget end, because it allows your weapon enhancements to additionally add utility of cleansing debuffs on your starship. Which means you aren't necessarily going to need as many extra cleansers on your starship. I still like engineering team and it has hazard mirrors to help with that, but it basically allows your cannon scatter volley and torpedo spread to also help cleanse things too, which is nice. Unconventional tactics from the strategist specialization allows your brace for impact to actually give you extra damage, which is always welcome. Arrest helps with cooldowns, which also helps. Because we don't have, Octobat, we don't have a higher version of Photonic Officers, so that's going to be a bit of a problem, because we don't have special click consoles that also reduce the cooldowns of our abilities. Going the extra mile is just an extra rounded out thing, so that whenever our Octa Structural Integrity Field is constantly being spammed in combat, if we happen to be above 90% hull at any given time, we get some additional max HP during that time too. And when we're actually in the heat of battle and aren't in there, we get a bonus to shield and hull healing too to keep us alive a little bit easier. In terms of the specializations themselves, Intel is probably going to be your best bet for your primary specialization. When it comes to your secondary, it depends upon your playstyle. If you're someone who does both space and ground combat, you probably should choose Command, because Strategist is useless in ground combat. And we don't have options right now to have a separate specialization for both space and ground. So you're going to be quite a bit weaker if you choose Strategist, because you want to be a full-on space combat and you don't want to do anything ground whatsoever. However, if you're somebody who wants to do DPS and want to have some stuff with ground as well, and be really good in ground, Intel plus Commando is probably the way to go. Also, Temperometer plus Commandos is a really potent ground combination as well for specializations too. But if you want to be well-rounded, Intel Command is probably the best for a DPS captain, with the things that a secondary is able to offer you. In terms of the traits themselves, I recommend Precision for extra crit chance. We don't have a lot of critical chance in this build itself, frankly, because we aren't using fleet consoles and don't have extra fun clickies to give extra critical chance or traits to give extra critical chance. So Precision really helps a lot. Additionally, Ox Power Offense just gives extra damage, plus Chrono Capacitor to help round out our cooldowns, and an Energy Refrequencer to help out with our actual outgoing damage to heal us a little bit. This is enhanced a bit by different things that enhance whole healing. So this is actually a bit more effective because of that particular going the extra mile trait, as well as whatever you have in your skill tree itself. In terms of the active reputation, I haven't actually messed with these in quite a while. Since I'm not a full DPS captain, someone else could probably tell you what's actually the best to put here. Typically anti-time is one of the better ones. Deploy sensor interface is a pretty nice defensive one. Beyond what the other two are, it's really up to you. For me personally, I typically have one of them actually be the Omegas, Tier 5 active reputation one to help out with in-ground combat. Yeah, it's really up to you if you want to go full on space or not. Now for space sets themselves, I really like the Soul Defense set for a very more offensive budget build with Soul Defense Deflector, Impulse, and Shield. The shield's a covariant shield, which is sad, but you do get additional healing to yourself for shields, which is helpful. The Impulse engines give you extra defense whenever you're being hit, and the Deflector is a solid all-around deflector. The 2 and 3 piece is nice as well. The 2 piece gives you an extra damage resistance for a console effectively on your starship, and the 3 piece gives you a healing clicky. Additionally, for the warp core, because we like power cost reduction on our starships, especially at the budget end, the deuterium warp core is really nice to have. You can craft this, or you can go to a mission in the Borg mission arc called Where Angels Fear to Tread, and this is right there in one of the options to choose. And you get it right there. You get that weapon power cost reduction, and you get a weapon capacitor clicky on top of it to repair weapon system offlines whenever that happens to happen to you, like if you're fighting the Iconians. Now, eventually, in my opinion, what you'll want to move to, and this is assuming that you aren't using anything from the fleets, is to use the prevailing impulse engines from the competitive reputation, the engineering variant specifically, because Ox the Civ will be spamming on your starship, which is going to help a lot with the thing on this. Whenever you use a heal or shield bridge ability, including Ox, Charge Integrity Field, you get a significant amount of flight speed, turn rate, as well as defense. And you get a lot of cooldowns off your engineering bridge officer abilities. So a lot of your cooldowns is going to effectively be done through these engines and through Ox Structure Integrity Field for your engineering abilities. Additionally, things to change for the other 2 pieces of Soul Defense is for the Discovery 2 piece. I found this to be quite effective actually. Torpedo damage resistance helps a lot against the Vodwar. Now it doesn't help against their mines, but it helps against their other torpedoes that they fight against you. It's also why the Delta Quadrant's one of the hardest areas in the game, in my opinion, even still, especially for budget end builds inside the game. It's also why the Vodwar Elite TFO is still one of the hardest inside the game, because you have to have a really high DPS group to get through that. The shield is still really nice though. The shield's passive in that your weapons basically do a shield damage debuff on the shields. Essentially, it gives you and your entire team extra shield pen, which is really nice. It helps with DPS, especially on enemies like the Zenkethi, for instance, that their shields never seem to go down. But in which you actually can use something like this, and then you can still have a decent amount of damage going straight through their shields, going to their hull, and still blowing them up that way. The 2-piece also gives you extra hull regeneration based upon your maximum hull, which the Ferengi decor isn't necessarily the least tanky ship in the game, so it's going to be a decent amount of hull regeneration you're going to be getting additionally with that 2-piece. Now for beginners, this is different than what I talked about with the budget beam tank video. The thing is, beam weapons have a base power loss of 10 power loss for each weapon that's firing. This will be affected by power transfer rate and weapon power cost reduction as such. Regular cannons, dual cannons, dual heavy cannons, it's regularly 12 weapon power. And for turrets, it's 8. So if you have 8 beam weapons, that's 80 power that's being lost. Well, minus 1 because it's every weapon after the first. But basically, for rough math here, it's 80 weapon power for beam weapons. If you have a 4-4 layout with cannons and turrets, that's also going to be 80 weapon power. So for a 4-4 weapon layout, this general weapon for beginners concept, it's still going to be the same as what it was in that video. The difference though, and the big thing here, is that because we're not doing a tank build and we're using the Ferengi decor with battlecruiser commands, we actually can use weapon system efficiency. Plus we can have a warp core with power cost reduction as well. And then of course, in multipolar, you actually could have 3 sources of power cost reduction really cheaply on your starship. This means you could go 8 energy weapons on this build if you want. It's up to you. In my testing though, between 7 and 8 isn't that huge of a difference. It's much less of a difference if you substitute out a turret for something else like a mine than if you substitute out a dual cannon or dual heavy cannon. In these example builds I'm going to be having in the description, it's going to be 3 dual heavy cannons with a torpedo, and then 4 turrets in the back. You're more than welcome to change that up as you so choose. This is just kind of like something as a resource. It's just something to start off with for those of you that don't like to go to STO Reddit because of the notoriety of how things can be there. It's totally up to you of how you want to move forward. Now for engineering consoles, here are 5 plus a console that I'll be using in the engineering slots. When I was talking about budget beam tank builds last time, one of the things that was pointed out to me that I was told, why did you include this console, was the polaric modulator. It's from the Delta Flight mission in the Iconium War Arc, and it gives additional flight speed. A lot of consoles give flight turn rate. This is one of the few consoles in the game that actually gives you flight speed. So if you're wanting to be one of those people that's trying to get the fastest rising Corvette possible, or you have a really slow ship and just want to get much faster flight speed, this is one of those consoles that you can put on your starship for just that purpose, to give yourself more flight speed. There are also a couple of sources to give inertia, but not a ton, so that also helps with turning and less strafing and sliding in space combat. In my personal example build in the description, I use reinforced armaments, House Martok, conductive RCS, and assembly module for my 4 engineering slots, and I don't include Trillium D and polaric modulator. My rough testing anyway, I didn't do a ton, but I did a little bit. For something that's not a tank, that was sufficient enough for rough survival for the couple of builds that I tried out. If you don't think that's enough, you could replace assembly module with Trillium B, add polaric modulator for extra speed. If you find that your ship's too slow, it's totally up to you. There's a lot of options with the arc and the mission that they come from, or for conductive RCS, that's just from R&D 15 engineering. And because Ox's structure integrity field is constantly going off on the starship, you have an additional 10% shield resistance and an additional 20% turret above what's already in these consoles. That's up 50% of the time. So for tactical consoles, because I didn't cover this in that other video at the beginning of the year, here are the 6 general tactical consoles that are energy consoles, and they're sources to get them for free with just plain missions inside of the game. A lot of people won't do this, and they'll just buy them from the exchange, or they'll just craft them themselves. Or, they'll just get a tactical console from the fleet that's just better because it gets crit chance or crit severity or extra survival things if it's the colony one. As you can see here, Phasor, Disruptor, Plasma, and Tetrion all have a mission in the New Frontiers arc that you can choose one of those tactical consoles to be able to basically fill out your tactical consoles for free. For budget end, that's kind of what I suggest, or you can just craft them or buy them from the exchange yourself, or just get lucky and get a random drop of the console that you need. Polaron and Anti-Proton, those were consoles I couldn't find missions that actually guaranteed them for you. Granted though, if you start a Geminar character, you do get 4 Polaron phase modulators for free right off the bat starting your new character. And then whenever you finish that arc, you also can choose the Morphogenic Matrix tactical console as well, so you can round out your 5 tactical consoles for your starting ship with 5 Polaron consoles really easily. So if you choose a Geminar character and you're going to do Polaron, that's not really that big of a deal. It's just for everyone else that they have to worry about crafting. Anti-Proton, you're basically stuck crafting. I think that's for a different reason that I'll cover in a little bit later in this video. Yeah, these are the exact missions to get those. The Tetrion Pulse Generator you can get from the Renegade's Regret or from the Midnight mission. You can choose either one, or you can alternate between them, especially if you're getting sick of Midnight because you've already played it 3 times to get the Soul Defense set. You can play the Renegade's Regret to get some of the other Tetrion consoles. Now, 2 other consoles that's really important to note. First off is the Lorca console. I should call it Lorca's Custom Fire Controls, especially because on this build we have such low base crit chance from consoles because we aren't using fleet tactical consoles. This particular console from the Discovery Legends Reputation is even more critical to have on this DPS build. A lot of DPS builds that I've seen on SGO builds use this console already, especially on a budget build. It's even more paramount to have this. You get extra critical chance, and you get a significant amount of shield penetration as well. So in case you're stuck fighting the Zinkethi, you can actually do something against them, even on a budget build like this one. The 2-piece also gives you extra stacking crit severity whenever you get a crit, which is nice. And it's why the Dark Matter Quality Torpedo is going to be used on most of these budget builds as the one torpedo to be used in most of the builds. Additionally, for Polaron builds, I highly recommend using the Morphogenic Matrix Controller because you lose a little bit of Polaron damage, but you get some additional weapon power cost reduction for the build as well. Which means you could easily substitute out the Deuterium Warp Core for something like from the Competitive Reputation, or if you want to do a 3-piece Discovery Legends space set, you can easily do that as well with a Polaron build too. For other consoles, because in my example build, it's going to be the 4 tactical consoles, which I've just basically shown, and then the 4 engineering consoles, which is shown on that one slide. We're basically trying to find for these next 2 slides, it's going to be the consoles that are going to be filling in those 3 remaining science consoles for the Starship. Some of the ones to choose from: the Nausicaan Siphon Capacitor from the Echoes of Light mission gives disruptor damage and power transfer rate. We aren't going to be using anything else in the 3-piece Nausicaan set because those other 2 pieces deal more with disruptor beam damage than disruptor cannon damage, because it's a disruptor torpedo and a disruptor beam array, which that's way too costly to add into a disruptor build, frankly. So, I mean, you definitely can. You can if you want. Some more consoles. The Emitter Refocuser from the Renegade's Regret also gives you Tetrion damage. The Temporal Disentanglement Suite from the Butterfly mission by itself gives you extra crit chance of crit severity based upon your auxiliary power level. For most DPS builds, by the way, it's full on weapons power and as much as possible, and then you try to funnel most of the rest of your power into auxiliary power anyway to synergize with the new car reputation stuff of that your aux power gives you additional damage. Additionally, with this console, it'll give you extra crit chance and crit severity, which is really nice on this particular build. I'm only using it in the Tetrion damage version, just because when you combine that with the turret, you additionally get an additional 13% Tetrion damage. You could easily put this in any of the other builds too. Additionally, the Quantum Phase Converter from the Sunrise mission from the Future Proof arc gives you additional phaser damage as well. As for more universal consoles that you could put there, Sustained Radiant Field is a nice solid one that works for all energy types. It gives you 10% weapon damage plus 20% bonus to shield and whole heals. It's only outgoing whole heals, but it's still nice. The Piezoelectric Focuser and the Ordnance Accelerator from the Nuclei Restoration and Gamma Task Force reputation, they're both with their two pieces of either the dual cannon or the turret, give you essentially an extra tactical console as a universal console, which is nice. The Piezoelectric one's a bit better because it's already basically a tactical console, but the 2-piece bonus adds more to it. The Ordnance Accelerator is basically a tactical console when you add both the console and the 2-piece bonus together. They both also give you extra flight turn rate as well, but the Piezo one just gives you more damage and also more shield capacity too. The Hydrodynamics Compensator, when combined with the turret, gives you extra bonus damage, accuracy, and turn for 4 of the 6 energy types in 6 regular energy types in the game. So you'll see this 2-piece on most of the builds. The Chronoton Drive Actuator for Polaron and for Anti-Proton. The 2-piece is essentially Sustained Radiant Field, but you sacrifice the bonus to healing for both hull and shields for extra crit severity. So, in my opinion, for DPS builds, for Polaron and Anti-Proton, this 2-piece is a bit better than Sustained Radiant Field. But obviously, if you're not going to be doing as much defensive stuff in your engineering slots, you can easily add Sustained Radiant Field to the Polaron or Anti-Proton builds that I suggest in the description. So for the weapon setups themselves in this video, number 1, in my opinion, is phasers. The reason being is that there's so many great sets available to them, especially for budget and stuff, which is the stuff that I've mentioned in this video. Additionally, it's got some of the best highest DPS potential, with a lot of other sets that are really good inside the game too, that if you really want to spend in-game money for it, there are a lot of great sets like the Synergistic set, which is really, really good. Plus, you have a lot of the linked weapons inside the game, which are accessible to phasers as well. They have some of the most amounts of variants for phasers in the game, so there's a lot of things to choose from, a lot of different colors to choose from too. So there's a lot of good things going for it. You have the Terran Task Force, just dual heavy cannon for phasers, which you need tier 6 Terran Task Force reputation in order to get it, but it's the best DPS weapon in the game, tied with the disruptor version of it. You have the Gamma Reputation's turret and console, which is nice. In the budget tank video, we actually had to go with something else. We actually used a torpedo here instead of the turret for a lot of builds. Off topic, but we also have the Trilithium turret and console, which is nice. We already have the console for all of our builds anyway, but the turret just adds extra fire and cycle haste for our build. The A472 heavy battle turret just adds an extra some bonus damage and turning to our ship as well. Ferengi Decor doesn't have the best turning, so that's nice. Then we're using the Quantum Phase dual cannon and console. It adds some extra drain proc and stuff for our cannon. You could put in the Quantum Torp as well for this build to get an extra click. In my opinion, the 2-piece crit severity stuff with Lorca console is a bit better, but you could easily argue to put that on instead, or if you want to have 2 Torps on this build, one front, one rear, still have that clicky, you're more than welcome to have that too. For all these builds, by the way, I'll have the consoles here, and then I'll have the weapons that I say are the necessary ones, sort of for the budget stuff, over here with whatever empty slots that are left. for weapons to fill in as you choose for these particular builds. For the example builds themselves on the STO County stuff, I do have those weapons filled out there. The very, very close number 2 right behind phasers is going to be Polaron. And it's because you essentially have, instead of one console that's a universal tactical, you have 2, plus you have a lot of great survival things available to you. Piezo Polaron is extremely great, basically the best variant weapon in the game for survival, which is great. You can fill in the remaining slots in here with more Piezo Polarons and then another Piezo Polaron dual cannon, plus 2 Piezo Polaron turrets if you want it in the back. The Morph Generator 3-piece is really, really nice for its bonuses in there. And then at tier 6 rep, you can use the Tempo Reps dual cannon and console for some extra shield resistance, potentially on a Starship that lasts a while. Plus the 2-piece gives you extra crit severity as well. It's a fantastic combo here. It's really hard to go wrong with these. There's also lots of other Polaron sets from various other missions in the game too that you can also choose. There's a couple other ones that add debuffs to enemies instead of making yourself more survivable. It's really up to you. But in my opinion, Polaron's one of the better ones in the game, frankly. It doesn't have as much of a DPS ceiling because there's not as many great sets for it, unfortunately. But there are a lot of great mission and reputation ones that help it out quite a bit. The rest of the ones, frankly, in this video lag substantially behind those particular 2. Tetryon doesn't have a ton, to be honest. You have the Cretum turret and console for that 2-piece for Tetryon damage. My recommendation for these other 4 slots, by the way, is to fill them in with Refracting Tetryon. 2 Refracting Tetryon dual cannons and 2 Refracting Tetryon turrets. You can use the E472 turret and console because it's for the 6 energy types. So, and then for one of the other turrets or cannons up here is use the Advanced Radiant dual cannon from tier 6 Iconium reputation. The 2-piece from that really doesn't do a ton for you, unfortunately. The stats are pretty low, so I prefer just using the Tetryon Science console from the Renegades Regret. I'm pretty sure that's what the mission was and what I said. It just gives you more damage, frankly. Tetryon's okay. It's number 3 here just because it's an okay energy type. All this is not from Low by Star or anything. The better stuff, frankly, like the Future Tetryon, is from the Low by Store, unfortunately, or from Lockbox. But this stuff is still serviceable. Refracting Tetryon's proc spreads its attack to some other enemies too. So that's nice. Hurts a little bit with threat, but I mean, it gives you more damage overall, which is what you want. For Disruptor, I put it as number 4, right behind Tetryon. Now, if you're using like the linked disruptor weapons, or you're using spiral disruptors, those are probably the better ones out there. But unfortunately, you need to get a Cardassian Starship to get spiral disruptors. The Gemini Vanguard pack from the C-Store is the best way to get that, frankly, for your entire account. But for budget, we don't have access to any of those. So, obviously, the best one for general weapons overall, first off, is the Terran Task Force Disruptor Dual Heavy Cannon. Best DPS in the game. I also recommend putting the Resonant Disruptor Dual Cannon in front as well. It's Disruptor proc, does some AoE stuff whenever it procs. If you wanted to add the Resonant Disruptor's Tactical Console as well for some extra armor penetration, you can. There are a lot of other better ways to get armor pen in this game, but it's up to you as to whether you want that particular tactical console and lose some damage for it. I think that tactical console is a bit better for budget disruptor builds than budget cannon builds, but there's also a lot of great budget disruptor beam stuff out there, so it's kind of unfortunate there. 8472 reps turret and console as well, and instead of a torpedo on this build, I'm using the House Martok beam, just because it adds some extra critical chance, which since we don't have very much in this build, that is very nice to have too. You could easily take that off and put a torpedo in front, or you can just put that dark matter torpedo and still have that too if you so choose. Regular disruptors are fine to include in here. For your other ones in here, it's totally up to you as to what you want to put there. Regular disruptors is going to be the cheapest way to go, and you'll get a bunch of those when leveling too, or random drops in missions and TFOs. In my opinion, though, just from the budget and standpoint, there aren't a lot of great sets for disruptor cannons. There's a lot of stuff for disruptor beams, but not for disruptor cannons. Number 5 here, lagging super far down, is anti-proton. The way I basically see this particular energy type is, for budget, there's not a lot of stuff available to you. The tactical consoles, I haven't found a mission where you can get those for free. So you have to get it either through random RNG and TFOs, or just craft them, or go to the exchange and buy them, or go to your fleet and get better ones. The one good thing going for it, though, for budget, is if you want to do a full and use all the rest of these slots for these temple reputations, chronoton weapons, you do have a lot of extra shield resistance that you get on your starship with them. That's the only thing. I definitely prefer the Piezo Polaron proc personally over this one. Of course, Polarons also get this tempo reps dual cannon as well at tier 6 reps, so it's kind of cheating a little bit. I basically see anti-proton at the budget end as just a weaker Polaron. However, you get the super end game, anti-proton does beat out Polaron. It's just kind of the way it is, because you have the Herald version of anti-proton, which is really good. You also have the standard anti-proton proc, which instead of an actual proc, you just get inherent extra crit severity on your anti-proton weapons. So if all energy types were created equal, then anti-proton would actually be the best energy type inside of the game. Like, if everything eventually moves towards just static stuff on weapons instead of procs, anti-proton should be in a really good shape once extra sets are added to that energy type. For budget end, in my opinion, there are better things to go for. Rounding out the bottom, in my opinion, is Plasma. Now, it's not just because there's not a lot of great stuff for them besides the Lucari 2-piece. It's just because of the way that the proc for Plasma works. It gives you higher threat generation per basically tick of damage that you're doing versus all the other energy types. And for a DPS budget build that you don't want to take as much threat as possible, it's not like a tank that wants threat. If you're doing a regular DPS build, you don't want threat. So you're going to get a lot of extra inherent threats, so basically the better that you do, the more amplified that extra threat from Plasma is going to be. Also, both of these earnable sets both require tier 6 reputation to get their 2-piece bonus, which kind of sucks. Now, granted, when you level the Romulan rep, the Romulan Plasma proc is actually pretty decent, because it get from those weapons you can get the Romulan proc as well as the Disruptor proc. And the Disruptor proc is one of the better general procs inside the game, so that's nice. But from a budget standpoint, I honestly consider them a worse version of Disruptors in many ways. From the budget standpoint, anyway. For the flavor on this build, especially if you want to do the Ferengi decor with full Ferengi weapons, Ferengi Plasma is the way to go, because it's Ferengi. Those are from the exchange, though they aren't from missions and such, so that's the only downside to those. But hey, for the memory or whatever, it's totally up to you all for it. Anyway, hopefully y'all enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you do. I'm not someone who bombards you with tons and tons of videos and such. I'm someone who puts out videos when I think one's necessary, or when I haven't put one out for a while and the YouTube algorithm is going to be hating me in the future if I don't. And then if needed be, I put one like this one that's out there as a placeholder. Next week, for those of you that are watching in the present, on PC, at least if everything stays on schedule, is going to be the Kobayashi Maru. It's kind of an annoying TFO if you don't have the Lucari AoE healing console, but as long as you can get through the first couple of phases, then it's fine, and you get whatever the thing is going to be. Right now in this thing, in the in-game announcement stuff, it's called a resupply beacon device, whatever that means. There's a good chance in the next couple of days, Cryptic is probably going to explain what that actually is. Anyway, yeah, as for the 2 videos that I was going to release that I haven't yet, the Sompet ground video, as well as the, what was it called? Yeah, basically the Star Trek Online economy video talking about lockboxes, the exchange, some other things going on inside the game. Both of those have been delayed a little bit. I did record them and I did upload them. However, when I was listening to them, they eerily reminded me of that one video where I talked about the miracle worker carriers, and that was a disaster. I only still keep that video up just to remind you all of how bad things can get on this channel. So if you really want to watch that disaster, feel free. I don't encourage you to, but you can. That's not the type of content that I want to continue to make on this channel. I would rather just not have videos than to have videos like that one again on this channel. So I'm rewriting my script, redoing my orders of things to try to get things right, so that I'm not just bashing Cryptic, but instead trying to say, hey, here's some things that are wrong, or things I think that could be improved better. Here's the deficiencies, and here's how to easily fix them. Like, I also have a couple of other videos in the works, like how to improve ground combat, using Neverwinter as an example of how to do it a little bit better. I've played a little bit Neverwinter recently just to get some ideas of how Cryptic can use the engine to make ground combat interesting. There'll be more about that in some later videos on this channel, probably within like the next 2 months or so, if everything goes to plan and things don't get super complicated in the near future. Anyway, for those that actually listen to that rant, hopefully you all enjoyed it as for some things that are going on. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.